Hi, I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. Today is April 13th, 2022. I'm joined, as usual today, by Western Standard news editor Dave Naylor, who's finally got a shirt on that doesn't blind me.
There you go, but the tie does.
The tie is, what was it? It's going to give me epilepsy.
Sorry about that.
And improving his tie game today is Western Standard opinion and broadcast editor Cory Morgan. How you doing?
Very good today.
Beauty. Okay. We've got an interesting show today. We're going to be discussing, can anyone stop Pierre Poilievre? His rallies are they're big. I mean, they're really big. Very big. And I mean, he appears to be running away with it. We're going to do an assessment of where the Conservative leadership race is right now, and if it's already as good as over. We're going to talk about inflation getting out of control. The Bank of Canada doubling the overnight interest rate to banks today. I think probably just a taste of things to come. Record inflation in Canada, record inflation in the United States as governments have been printing money like it's going out of style. We're going to dive into that. And sixth-wave fear-mongering. You knew it had to happen. COVID is not going away. It's going to come and go, and it's going to come and go. And we'll have lockdowns and we'll have openings and lockdowns and openings. Now the usual suspects, fear-mongering about a COVID sixth wave. We always knew COVID sixth wave was going to come, but it sounds to me like they're laying the groundwork for more lockdowns, more mandates, all of that kind of good stuff that the intelligent among you probably knew were not gone for good. So before we dive into it, though, we want to thank our sponsor, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. I've been a member of the Canadian Shooting Sports Association for nigh a decade now. I've been a member of the CSSA because they stand up for my rights as a firearms owner to own, use, purchase my firearms legally and lawfully in Canada. They're doing great work, helping politicians construct smart firearms laws and legislation. And when that doesn't work, which it often doesn't, they're doing great work on public education of firearms owners and non-firearms owners in Canada to make sure we've got the least insane gun policies possible in Canada, making sure we don't go the way of Australia and just have a totally disarmed and neutered population. So check them out. I can never remember the URL. I'm going to tell the people to CSSA to get a new website, but it's a good website, bad URL. Cory, what's the URL?
CSSA-CILA.org.
There, check it out. You can read more information there about why you should become a member of the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Have been for a long time. You should too. And of course, we want to thank all of our Western Standard members for your continued support. God, I love you guys. You guys keep on signing up in massive numbers. It's allowing us to hire tons more reporters right across Western Canada, even plunking them down in the Lions Den, in Ottawa, expanding our editorial and news presence everywhere we can get our hands on here. So if you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com/membership. Sign up. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year to support independent, bailout-free Western media. Before we get into the first topic, though, we should also plug a new show that's coming. You've hopefully already watched Triggered with Cory Morgan every day from 11:30 to 1 Mountain Standard Time. But 9 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, you'll also now be treated to the return of the Danielle Smith Show. Since Danielle Smith has been off the air with QR 770 in Calgary, there really just hasn't been much in the way of any kind of freedom-oriented talk radio, period. In Alberta, at least. I know in BC, you've got John Gormley.
Saskatchewan.
I said BC, yeah. I meant Saskatchewan. Sorry, Saskatchewan. You wish, BC. There really just isn't much. There's a couple of good pockets here and there. There's nothing in Alberta whatsoever. So we're going to bring the Danielle Smith Show right to the Western Standard. So it's going to be half an hour Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and then a full 2-hour long-form interview, kind of like the Joe Rogan Experience on Saturdays, digging into issues of importance to Westerners. So I'm really looking forward to that and bringing the Danielle Smith Show right here. Okay, well, let's get into it. I keep on telling people we're going to get to the topics, and I keep on throwing things in. I'm just baiting you along. I'm baiting you along, people. Can anyone stop Pierre Poilievre? Skippy. Can they stop Skippy? last night, a bunch of the Western Standard crew, at least, we went south from where our office is here to the south of Calgary to the Spruce Meadows, the big equestrian facility there, and massive turnout for a Poilievre crowd. Dave, I guess maybe we'll just set the scene of what was last night, and then we'll take it to the bigger picture of the campaign overall. Just tell us what we saw last night.
Well, the host of the evening, MP John Barlow, says final attendance figures were 6,500 inside and outside. Incredible, really. It was a homecoming of sorts for Poilievre. He was born in the riding. He was born in nearby Shaughnessy. Actually talked about basically breaking into Spruce Meadows and riding his bike and with some buddies around the horsey jumps and stuff like that. So It was a homecoming. His mother was there. His family was there. And the crowd loved him. The crowd ate it up. He talked about everything that was red meat to conservatives, from defunding the CBC to, just getting everybody's freedoms back. And the crowd ate it up. And it was just the latest in a stop across Western Canada that has drawn unprecedented levels of public support.
So, quite a few of us were there. I know you were there last night too, Cory. I think there were more people last night in a single room for Pierre Poilievre than I'm willing to bet that Jean Charest is going to get at all of his events combined across the entire campaign. You see pictures of Charest events. He's lucky to have a dozen geriatric old progressive conservatives in a room. They pale in comparison. I remember the first conservative leadership race. I lived in a small town, and Tony Clement came through, and it's like, politician coming to our town. So we went, and I don't know, there was probably 30 people in the room for Tony Clement. But Jean Charest is supposed to be the great red hope here. He is supposed to be the champion of the red Tories. He's going to bring back real progressive conservatism. He's going to pick up where Aaron O'Toole left off, essentially. He was supposed to be the one to stop. Dave,
I just said his support is Quebec. It's all in Quebec. You look at any VIP that is supporting him, they're basically in Quebec. When he launched his campaign in Calgary, it was 150 people. When he had the next night in Vancouver, second night of the campaign, it was 100 people. Now you're looking at 6,500 for Poilievre. So certainly he's got the public momentum. Don't forget, the last time Peter MacKay was seen to be as the front runner, and he ended up not winning. So it's early days, long way to go till September, but he's definitely the front runner.
Yeah, but I'm not sure there's much comparison between. I know I was all in. Peter MacKay was going to win. I didn't think that was a good thing, but I thought he was going to win. But he wasn't capturing any kind of zeitgeist. He was just the biggest name in the race because no one really knew Aaron O'Toole. And he was certainly not drawing any crowds.
No, nobody cared back then.
Nobody cared. It was a nothing race. I know crowds are just one indicator, but they are a big indicator, Cory. Do you think can Poilievre be stopped?
Yeah. I don't think he will, but I think he can. As Dave was saying, it's a long run on this race. I like to play some devil's advocate. If I was a Charest strategist, and I'm sure they're already starting along those lines, I would make the Poilievre-Bernier comparisons to say Bernier drew just as many thousands on the prairies, but it's that same core of people. What we need is somebody who can win the election, not to win the leadership. And with weighted ridings, if this was one member, one vote, I would say Poilievre's just got it done. It's finished. He's, Westerners are going to come out en masse.
Well, one member, one vote. Lewis almost would have won last time.
Yeah, exactly. But when you need with weighted ridings, there's a lot of maritime ridings that Charest could do well in. There's a lot of Quebec ones, some Southern Ontario, and still grabbing a bit of a percentage, lower mainland BC. I wouldn't write Charest off yet. I mean, the populism that Poilievre is showing is fantastic, and I think conservatives have been waiting to see somebody to give some good red meat conservatism, make them excited, make them happy. But when you start looking at how these races happen strategically, he's off to a great start, but with so many months ahead of him, there's a lot of room for a potential stumble or for another campaign to suddenly pick up.
It's already begun. You can see what Charest is going to do. On the weekend, he attacked Poilievre's support of the trucker convoy, the Freedom Convoy. So that's what he's going to do. And Cory's right. He's going to make Poilievre out to be some sort of right-wing lunatic that can't win in Southern Ontario and Quebec.
which may backfire. But I could see them going that route, and they might convince people to say, well, he won't win the general election, and that's what a lot of people are.
So the Bernier thing is interesting. I don't. It's not yet. It'll probably be published here soon. But I'm working on a column right now, talking about this rally and this very topic. Can Poilievre be stopped? And I've never seen any politician draw crowds like this, with the exception of Maxime Bernier. Bernier probably didn't get crowds this big everywhere he goes, but he's the only one I've seen with any kind of comparison. And I'll tell you, I know a lot of the people who go to these kinds of things, and I did see a lot of faces last night at the Poilievre event, who we also saw when Bernier was in Strathmore, Alberta, just east of Calgary here, in the last days of the 2021 campaign, the last general election. A lot, they're not all the same, but I recognize many familiar faces. There was, maybe this is a subtopic, but when Poilievre said, the first Trudeau created the Quebec separatist movement, the second Trudeau created the Western separatist movement. One guy front row in front of Poilievre said, "Yeah," he's like, "Yeah, we're out," and Poilievre jumped in to address that, but. I recognized people there last night who were Maverick Party, people who voted Maverick Party last time, people who voted PPC. So, Charest might have an argument to be like, yeah, he can get the hardcore right-wing loonies out, but he can't win the general election. Fine, but maybe that argument could hold for rallies, maybe. But in other polls, Dave, I don't know if you have the numbers handy, but we were just looking at it, some new polling numbers on how Canadians would vote with Poilievre as the Conservative leader versus Charest, the Conservative leader.
Poilievre was certainly doing much better.
Yeah, well, and Charest's whole argument is built to win. That's literally his slogan is, well, I can win, and that's not I'm the best guy, it's I can win. Is that argument working? So we just looked at these polls. How true is that?
Yeah, it's so far out. It's just, every day there's a new poll, and every day the results are different. So he seems to be attracting more of a broader community than Bernier did. Bernier was the extreme far right.
Sorry, are we talking about Poilievre or Charest?
I'm talking the comparison between Poilievre and Bernier. Bernier was limited to the extreme far right and only got less than.
Well, I wouldn't call it extreme far. When I say extreme far right, I'm thinking like Nazis.
Yeah,
I think you're just saying relative to like middle of the road conservatives.
Sure, but I think I think more middle of the road conservatives are attracted to Poilievre than they were than Bernier. To them, Poilievre is more palatable than Bernier. So I think those kind of attacks, as Cory says, may backfire, but right now it's all they've got.
So, okay, the rallies are, I think, a pretty big indicator of support in an internal leadership race here. And even if Charest was right that he's the only one who can win the general, and I don't think that's true at all. The data seems to suggest pretty strongly otherwise. We're not in the general election. We're in the leadership race. I want to hear maybe get from both of you. Is there any one individual who can beat Poilievre? And is it really Charest? That's sort of the mainstream media narrative that Charest's the guy to beat him, but is he?
Well, I think Lewis probably has the better chance. I think Lewis can capture that vote. Just as certainly she'll be more popular in the West than Charest, and probably in Ontario than Charest. It's just a matter of how she can do in Quebec and further on down east.
She's got a base to build on already. I mean, she surprised a lot of people in the last leadership. I mean, it was this out of the blue, came in as an exceedingly strong contender. The other one, fourth, Brown, I don't see him making an impact outside of a select area of Ontario. He's just not making waves. He's not exciting anybody. And Poilievre is the one to beat. You got to watch that leading contender that gets all the guns pointed at you as well, and they're going to be all after Poilievre. The excitement's contagious. If he could start getting rallies that look like this in Newfoundland or Ontario or
he has
Nova
been in
Scotia.
Ontario and Vancouver.
Huge rallies.
And if they're looking like these, he's going to be hard to unseat. There's no doubt about it. People get on with the bandwagon. So
I actually do think we need to continue to keep an eye on Lewis. I've said before, I dropped the ball with her last time.
We all underestimated her.
Yeah, we just didn't give her the seriousness that I think she deserved as a candidate. If she had been taken more seriously, she probably would have won. She just got next to no press because, even independent media like us that understand this kind of stuff, I think a bit better than the mainstream, we still kind of dropped the ball. She didn't have high profile endorsements. She didn't catch much media, and that kind of feeds back on itself. If you don't get media, we kind of assume you don't deserve media. And well, that's often true, but it's, every once in a while it turns out to be wrong. And that was the case. I don't think there's a path to victory for Charest unless Poilievre utterly implodes. Like someone's got the dirt on him. They find him, as they say, with dead girl or live boy. Unless they got the real dirt on him, I don't see a path for Charest to win because he's just so unpalatable with massive numbers of conservatives where he can't even be considered a lesser of evil. He's got his positions on the liberal gun registry, carbon tax, equalization. Albertans voted for Bernier in the 2017 conservative leadership race, but Bernier was not running as a raw Quebec guy. He was running almost anti-Quebec politics, at least. Charest's been a Quebec premier and gone to battle for Quebec against the West before. So I think there's such a hard limit on how many conservatives would be willing to vote for Charest, whereas Lewis, she's a social conservative, and that will put some more red Tories off and social progressives. But I think there is a path to victory for her, especially if Poilievre stumbles, because she's relatively inoffensive. She's well spoken. She's not mean. She's not nasty. And I was listening to Anthony Fury on the one of the Post Media podcasts. And she was on there, and it was kind of teed up for her to go after Poilievre for, Brown said Poilievre's a racist. He puts it to, our second black candidate for prime minister here. And she didn't take the bait. She said, he's been nothing but a gentleman. He's not a racist. Brown's full of crap.
Yeah. I think the venerable Rex Murphy put it best when he said, he is so charisma. He has no charisma, so it makes it seem that he does. He's just, people are fed up of just somebody who does something. Like Trudeau came to power on a charisma. He has his charisma, and people realized, oh, okay, he may have charisma, but he's a bit of an idiot. So it's nice people want to see someone who knows what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I can just imagine a federal election debate between Poilievre and Trudeau. It would be just a massacre.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to it in a way. But just to say, he's in Edmonton tomorrow night, Poilievre, mm-hmm. and our Rachel Emmanuel will be on the scene filing reports from there. So it'll be interesting to see how he does up north.
Yeah. As I say in my column, he is, I mean this, without meaning to give offense, but he's kind of a nerd. He looks like a nerd. He looks like he graduated. I bet he probably did graduate from the Fraser Institute's Austrian economics internship program. Like, he looks like he did. But he was talking about all these kind of geeky talk, like monetary policy. I have never, ever heard a serious candidate for office ever talk about monetary policy. Ever. And he somehow made it sexy last night.
The last conservative prime minister we had was a nerd. Harper, I wouldn't put as a
the last time monetary policy was a major federal issue was under John Diefenbaker.
But don't budgets balance themselves?
Oh yeah. I think people might be ready for some nuance after years of that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, okay, this is I guess a good segue from to just inflation. We're going so inflation now finally recognized by our betters as out of control. Bank of Canada increased the overnight lending rate, doubled it today from 0.5 to 1%. Dave, set it up here.
Well, it's an effort to bring inflation under control. It's 5.7% in Canada, the highest in 30 years. It's even worse in the States. It's at 8.5%, which is the worst in 40 years. It's incredible. And the Bank of Canada blaming the Ukraine invasion for all the rising prices. But they also need to cool off the housing market, which is out of control in Vancouver and Toronto and other places.
Even getting hot here.
Yeah, it's nice. So
if you own, it's nice.
If you own, it's nice. So yeah, as you mentioned, they doubled the interest rates. Everybody speculated they were going to do this. Everybody speculates already that they're going to double it again in the next go round. So apparently, it's already had a bit of an effect. I was listening to a Toronto real estate expert this morning talking about how he's already seeing, just the increase of 0.5 percentage point is going to increase a mortgage terribly. Everything's going up. Gasoline, prices of butter we were looking at today and doing a story on that. Go and try and find some meat, good steak.
Costco, it's still better.
Is it?
But
they don't sell dog food.
You one bag of dog food each.
It's like Soviet
Rationing
supply
the
management.
Dog food lines.
Yes, dog food lines.
We're in Soviet Kazakhstan.
They asked me if I'm happy. I went back to my bank and locked in the mortgage for another 5 years a few months ago.
I did too.
Yeah.
I saw this coming a mile away.
Yep. So I'm sorry if you didn't, but you should have seen it.
So Cory, inflation hasn't really been a major political topic since the 1980s. I mean, I remember when I was getting my first house and I was signing up at like, I don't know, 1.5, 2% interest, something like that. And I was like, oh, geez, that's a lot of money over time. And my dad just like slapped me upside the head. He says, let me tell you about the 80s, punk. Let me tell you about the 80s. That was interest rate. And my generation has never come close to anything like that. Interest rates are still wildly low. I guess, you're not a financial speculator here. So interest rates are going to have to continue to go up here. But maybe we'll talk about the politics of this. I guess it'll circle inevitably back to Poilievre a bit here. Let's talk about the politics of this. The Liberals are now finally recognizing it's on the radar. They're talking about it. But is there anything the Liberals can realistically do on inflation besides kind of token, gimmicky home tax-free savings accounts?
Yeah, well, they won't, but they could. I mean, if they went back to say the pragmatic Chrétien Liberals.
Let me rephrase that. Is there anything within the liberal worldview and universe that they could do that a liberal would plausibly do?
Not the current version of them, no. I mean, to do the true things we would need to stimulate the economy, so you have real, economic growth, real economic happenings that could counter that and put money into people's pockets, and produce things such as resources to offset that sort of thing. They won't do it. They don't want to, even though everybody else is talking about it. They're not talking about expanding oil and gas production in Canada or potash in Saskatchewan or resource development in general, not using the strengths we have. They're still fixated on virtue signaling, climate change, and spending, which is causing the bloody inflation in the first place. So they could, but there's no way this ideologically driven government will do it.
I don't think the Liberals believe that spending drives inflation, even though huge amounts of the new spending is driven directly by having the Bank of Canada print money to give to the government.
Like even Keynes understood that would happen.
Yeah. Keynes understood that. And Keynes is, not exactly our kind of cup of tea here. The liberal answer to it seems to be, maybe you could flesh out some of what they're doing here, Dave. The liberal answer seems to be, well, if things are getting more expensive, the government should pay to offset some of those costs. Don't think they're making the connection that, well, to have the money to offset those costs, they're printing more money, that they're in a vicious cycle. It's a vicious inflationary cycle. We need to reduce costs. So let's print some money and give that to people to reduce the costs of us printing money. What are some of the actions the government's announced in the budget in the few days since that, from their mind, are going to tackle cost of living?
Well, I'm not sure they have announced anything.
Menstruation products are getting a lot cheaper for the trans community.
That's true. Didn't you do a search on budget?
It's a new kind
inflation?
of economic cycle.
Well,
Did you do a search of the budget for the word inflation? Do I remember that?
I did, and inflation was somewhat high on it. Gender was what made me find the other.
I think what's ironic is
What you didn't want to find.
Housing was their top thing.
the Liberals are now kind of flush with money because of Alberta's oil, right? With the increase in oil price, they're getting, much like Alberta coffers, they're getting a bonus. They're getting billions of extra dollars in money from a sector of the economy they want to shut down.
Yeah.
Right? It just does not make sense. And I think it all goes back to when Trudeau says, "Well, I don't think about monetary policy." Right?
But to be fair, most prime ministers haven't thought about monetary policy for a very long time.
But
it's
since Stephen Harper, right? He was an economist, but
sort of an economist.
Sort of.
But I mean,
fair.
reality will bite them in the butt. I mean, when push comes to shove, it doesn't matter how progressive a person thinks they are or whatever. When suddenly they can't make the mortgage payment or the car payment, they're not taking the vacation, they're cutting back on the food goods, their standard of living actually starts to drop. And suddenly all those fluffy priorities that they loved out of the Liberals become priority too. And that's where, the life raft that's being handed out, it will be by a Conservative, I think. I mean, we could see that the populace embracing conservative monetary policy. The only thing that does that with the populace is when they actually start feeling it, and we're seeing the signs that they are going to feel it really soon. So Poilievre's positioning himself well.
So let's dive into what Poilievre is saying on this stuff, because he really is kind of the only one. I suppose Charest is now talking about monetary policy in the sense that he says Poilievre should stop talking about monetary policy. So Poilivre's put a few things on the table. He's put on, the idea of unleashing Bitcoin and digital currencies as a legitimized competitor with the Canadian dollar. Welcoming. I was quite shocked by the stridency of some of his rhetoric around this last night, saying things that my buddies say after a couple sodas, that you should not be limited to the Canadian dollar. Control of currency is one of the most powerful tools that governments have, and we never talk about this kind of thing, but it is that hugely powerful tool, and he wants to, for the way he's talking, at least, we'll see if he would follow through as prime minister, but wants to break the government monopoly on currency. That is a radical change in economic and monetary policy. I think a good one, but it's stuff I'm shocked to hear. A lot of the mainstream media has just hammered him for saying that his ideas will do anything about inflation. The mainstream media more or less seems to side with the kind of elite consensus opinion that inflation should just be controlled by the Bank of Canada, and that the politicians have no business interfering with that. Cory, do you think what he's saying overly simplistic? Is it populism in the bad sense of the word, of just telling people what they want to hear and it's not going to fix anything?
I don't think it's that simplistic at all, actually. He's diving deeper than, as you say, you would expect out of a candidate going out on a campaign. If you look, this is, as you said, a radical approach to it. Most, I think, people at best are just saying, well, at least the guy's addressing it and I'm scared of it and I know the Liberal method isn't working, so what he's offering must be better. But drilling down, I think most people in looking at economics think it will be better.
I think people are desperate at this point for anything. Trudeau was begged by everybody not to raise a carbon tax on April 1st. Did he care? No, he raised it.
Yeah.
Right? Something as simple as that could have helped people get over the hump of inflation. Jason Kenney knocked 13 cents off a liter of gasoline by stopping to collect the gas tax. So why can't Trudeau relax? Take a few pennies off the gas tax.
He's ideologically hooked in. I mean, you got to remember what his father did to deal with that. He tried wage and price controls, which failed catastrophically.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised to see Justin try the same thing, because he's not a sharp learner.
Well, I don't think we're there yet, but I barely remember, because I'm not that old, the days of the 80s in Calgary where people would just leave their keys in the mailbox and walk away.
Negative equity, high double-digit interest, they were screwed.
They were like 16, 17%. So I don't think we're there yet. But as Cory says, everybody is having their way of life squeezed in some way, shape, or form. You're not going to drive to Banff for that weekend getaway because gas is expensive. You're not going to go on the holiday because you can't drive across Canada in your motorhome, right? Everybody's going to see a change in the cost of living, whether it's just their family holidays or their food that they're buying or whatever it is, the shortage of dog food. Everybody's going to see some changes in their personal life.
My poor dog is going to see a big change.
Well, that's it. We got a big spending budget came out of the Liberals. I mean, they're on a filet mignon budget diet with a hamburger budget, and it's got to clash, and we're all going to pay it. So I think in a negative way, we're going to see some positive change, but we're going to have to suffer some more first.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we move on to our next one, we're going to have to thank our next sponsor, Bitcoin Well.
Sure. I'll speak to Bitcoin Well. Those guys have been a great sponsor for us for quite some time now. They were like our flagship sponsor, is a large one coming out. And what's great about them, well, a number of things. And we segued in unintentionally, but we're talking finances, we're talking economy, we're talking about hedging against inflation, getting out of the Canadian currency, and things. Of all people, Poilievre was talking about getting into digital currencies. A lot of us don't understand. Digital currencies hitting the news all over the place. It's new to us. We're not familiar with it. Bitcoin Well is a company that will help you navigate those waters. They'll teach you how to get into the world of Bitcoin, and they are a local company. See, the thing that's different, people worry about so much, is it's some foreign thing, or you go on a website and all you see is that pop-up window with someone to chat with. The Bitcoin Well does one-on-one service, good old school. Sit down with a live person face-to-face, and they will help you out and lead you through the waters and getting involved in digital currencies. And if it's not in your city, and they're in most of them, they'll do Zoom meetings. Again, it's live with a person. They're a Western Canadian company. They're publicly traded. It's the real thing. They're fantastic. If you want to get involved in digital currencies, Bitcoin Well is the local company to show you what they're all about and how you can get yourself in and take control of your money.
All right. Thank you. It's inevitable. Another wave.
It's here.
Another wave. I guess it's number 6. I've lost count long ago. I actually count by lockdowns, not by waves, but they're more or less correspond with the waves. Is this one still an Omicron, or are we?
No, I think it's still a variety of Omicron. Not as bad as Delta. But,
Omicron plus?
Omicron plus, Omicron extra. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Tam confirmed we're in the 6th wave. As you say, and Cory did his rant on it today, the fear-mongering has begun. We must have lockdowns. We must have masks on kids in schools. The wastewater is going up with COVID. The horror. The wake cancel culture mob is turning on their own. You mentioned today, Rachel Notley, a really nice picture of her holding a newborn baby. And it's, Rachel Notley's a baby killer. The baby's going to die of COVID because Notley's not wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. How many babies have died of COVID?
I looked at the stats. So in some years in Alberta with COVID raging and going on, I've sorted and dug and calculated the death count at 0.
0.
Babies killed by COVID are 0.
Devastating.
So even if Notley increased the risk by 100-fold, the chances of that baby being killed by her unmasked pose with that child remains at 0. So
0 times 100.
But her followers are losing it on her over this.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I like to think that people are coming around and saying, okay, we're in the 6th wave. There's going to be a 7th. There's going to be an 8th. We're here. It's here forever, guys. Learn to live with it. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Nobody's going to criticize you for it. No one's going to refuse you entry into a business. The fear mongering is just.
If Kenny makes masking mandatory in Alberta again, I will put a sign on the door banning anyone from wearing a mask into here. I will take away that freedom on private, because it's private property. I will take away that freedom. I won't allow them in here.
Well, you did get that phone call the last time from AHS.
They didn't call back after I told them where to go.
Yeah, you were a bad boy. So yeah, it's 6th wave. There are some increase in hospitalizations. There doesn't seem to be a huge upward trend in ICU numbers or deaths or anything like that, but it's here, and we're going to have to deal with it.
So we're already seeing, I know the largest school board in Ottawa has already imposed masking, even though they don't have the power to do it. The usual suspects are losing their minds. They're jumping at any opportunity to reimpose masking, reimpose any kind of mandates, mandatory vaccines, all these kinds of things. Let's bring it back to Alberta here. If Kenny survives his leadership race, I don't think he will, but if he survives and we're in a 6th wave that's, say, same serious level as the 5th or the 4th or the 3rd or whatever, how many weeks, Cory, until you think we have mask mandates and lockdowns in Alberta again?
I don't know. I don't think he'd be that foolish, but I can't predict anything anymore.
He has done it over and over. He brings in restrictions, he gets rid of them, and we seesaw constantly.
I think the difference is we're only 13 months away from the election. And if he brings them back in, he will be, if he's not already done politically, he will be done, because they won't forgive that.
The weekend
voters will forget
protests just wound down a little bit. But if you want to increase them, triple them, quadruple them in the belt line, hey, hipsters, you really want to see them come back and start honking? Bring back the masks. Bring back the restrictions. Like, people aren't going to put up with it this time. Every time they do it, there's going to be a few more. And they're not the racists. They're not the extremists. They're people sick and tired of it. And yeah, if Kenny does, who knows? But it will be explosive.
And keep in mind, there's still a huge chunk of the population that is mired in mandates still that are federal. They can't get on planes. They can't leave the country. All those people are still trapped in it.
They've never had relief. Yeah.
No, and even though most of the provinces are now out of the mandate scene, but I wouldn't put it past Trudeau to bring in some more restrictions if it does get out of hand. But I can't see Kenny doing it provincially.
Well, we haven't seen any now. Like I said, we're 2 years in. We can't keep pretending that we don't know. We haven't seen good evidence that any of this is effective. If they could prove that it works, then maybe people would be receptive. But now we're talking wave 6. Like, wow, and it's not lightening up. So as Dave said, wave 12, wave 20.
Conservative governments in Canada have proven completely cowardly in the face of the pressure that comes from the mainstream media and the more left-leaning parties than themselves. The UCP don't seem. I don't think Kenny loves masking and mandates. I don't think he's into that crowd. But as soon as the media start pounding the drum, start your stopwatch, because you got 1 week. They come every time. I'm not convinced that if we have another wave of some significance once he's passed leadership review, I'm willing to bet there's no lockdowns and mandates of any kind until, I like to say, I think I've told you guys this. If Kenny faced a leadership review every 3 months, he'd probably be a good premier.
Well, I heard there's a way to do that. They call it recall, but he didn't give us realistic legislation for it.
Yeah. Okay, well, what do you think what do you think we can realistically expect? Well, let's talk Alberta and then federal, and we already lightly touched on it. But okay, 6th wave. Let's say it's going to have at least some significance here. Or these things do have some impact. What do we expect?
It's tough to say. None of us are health experts. We can't predict what hospitalizations.
What do we expect in terms of a return of mandates of any kind?
Like I said, I don't think in Alberta there will be. I think if it was 2 years to an election, maybe 13 months. I think it's just too close to recover from.
Yeah, if he does it all, I think it'd be masking. It's the annoying one, but it's also the least intrusive. At least it doesn't put people out of work. It doesn't, really screw with their lifestyles. Doesn't stop them from visiting families. All of those other things that restrictions do. It doesn't crush small businesses like the passports did. They might go that route to show that, look, we're doing something. It wouldn't be well received. People would be upset. But if they were going to make a move, that one I could see them doing. Like Dave was talking, though, with a year away from an election, you want to start restricting restaurant hours yet again. Make from work from home orders. I mean, downtown, we're seeing how busy it's finally gotten again.
Traffic is back.
Yeah,
no, it's terrible.
And
I actually want the lockdown back. I used to have a great short drive to the office here. Like, we were the only ones in town. It was great.
But to reverse all of those again, that comes at a great cost. I mean, to businesses and individuals alike. Masking drives us nuts and pisses us off, but it doesn't bankrupt you. So I could see them perhaps making that move.
Hey, thanks for not saying the F word like you did on your show.
Did you drop an F-bomb on your show today?
Yesterday.
No, you can't say that. But here's the other thing. In Calgary and many other cities, actually not too many other cities, but maybe a couple of cities, NHL playoffs start. Bars are going to be packed. Hopefully the Flames go on a very nice long run deep into the Stanley Cup Finals. Could you imagine if Kenny government brings in restrictions on the number of people who can attend a Flames game, cut it down by 50%, start forcing bars to end service at 10 o'clock when you've got a West Coast playoff game that's only in the second period? I
can't see that. He's done it before.
I think the appetite's dropping, though. I mean, last night there was a different F word, some felcher on Twitter.
That's worse. That's a worse F word.
Depends on what you want to read into it. Either way, he throws.
Okay.
He throws a.
Okay, programming note right now, Nico. I want. We're gonna put Corey on a 5-second delay with a bleep. We're gonna put new Don Cherry rule for Corey. We're putting him on a bleep.
Either way, aside from the the direction that went. This gentleman was trying to say that the Poilievre thing was a super spreader event, which was very effective in the past in getting all the lefties loony whenever there's a large gathering of people.
Mm-hmm.
And he got ratioed. For people not familiar with Twitter, it means just everybody just came and slammed him and slapped him and said, lay off, take off, go away. There's hockey games. Like, it doesn't have the power it used to.
Do you remember how many people died from that illegal rodeo? So many.
I think Corey did the same research, didn't it? What was it?
How many deaths?
Carry the 6-0.
How many infections?
I think they found one or someone,
maybe
or two,
one.
maybe one.
Maybe one out of quite a
But
few.
they searched very hard.
Yes.
They worked hard. Yeah.
Oh, if they could have found it, they would have.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. I want to thank all of our Western Standard members for your continued support. Without you, we couldn't do the work we're doing. We're hiring new reporters every few weeks here, it seems, right now. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com, click on membership. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year to get unlimited access to bailout-free, independent Western media from the great team we've got here at the Western Standard. Thank you all very much for watching. Dave, Corey, you were okay today.
Yeah,
Wasn't your best.
It's blizzarding outside. No one really wants
It's
to be
pretty
here.
crappy. And Corey, wash your mouth, or I'm going to tell Jane on you.
I'm telling your mother.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, she watches all of these.
All right. Thank you very much, and God bless.